Then let's start again. Okay, let's start fresh. I'll do the English of the first verse, and then you do the Spanish, okay?
Okay.
I love you, Lord, my strength. I love you, O Lord, my strength. O Lord, my rock, my fortress, my deliverer.
Mm-hmm.
In Espanol.
You are reading the one in the screen?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Tú, Señor, eres mi refugio. Yo te amo, Señor, tú eres mi fuerza, el Dios que me protege y me libera.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Lord, you are my refuge.
Mm-hmm.
On each one of us, on our families, our suffering world, and our own intentions also. We ask God for an increase of wisdom that we may know how we can make a difference through our prayer and through our faith. And I'd like us all to say the Our Father together. Say it out loud. Even if you're on mute, say it out loud, okay? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Okay. I would like to introduce our speaker for today. Her name is Ziebert. And I'm going to read a little bit from her biography, okay? So that you'll know something about her. Ziebert is with Plant-Based for Life. She's a speaker, health educator, and transition specialist. She recently left a position with 2 hospitals, or she has worked with 2 hospitals in the Ventura area. And she is now pursuing her nutrition, plant-based nutrition on her own. She volunteers with Ventura Public Health, where she is assisted with events, screenings, and taught health education for after-school programs. Okay. And without further ado, I would like the powers that be to transfer us to Jay so that you can all meet her. Jay Ziebert.
Good morning, everyone. Hi there. So nice to see so many beautiful faces. This is absolutely wonderful. I don't believe that any of us have met, and I just think that that's absolutely fantastic. So we have all this opportunity to get to know each other a little bit today. Now, anytime I have over 15 people in a gathering, I do ask that we wait till the end for questions. If it was smaller, I don't mind interruptions. Actually, I love little side jags with questions and discussion. But today, since we have a fairly large group, and I expect a couple more will join us in a bit, let's wait until the end. I want to thank you so much for allowing me here and allowing me to speak and listening to what I have to say. I absolutely welcome questions, so I'm going to leave a lot of time at the end so there's room for that. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I did prepare a PowerPoint presentation for you this morning. And you'll get to know a little bit more about me. So today the topic is Eat Your Way to Better Health. And I don't know about all of you, but I'm a big fan of eating. So this is a great way for me to get my health in a better place. And I'm going to tell you my story in just a little bit. So today I'd like to talk about my story and some of the things out there that kind of give us a guidepost for some of our best health practices. Now, health is a holistic practice, right? There's a lot of aspects to health, stress and exercise and all of that as well. But my passion is all about nutrition. I am just absolutely obsessed and fascinated with how our body reacts to what we put in it. And so that's what I'm mostly going to talk about today, but I'm going to touch a little bit on the other aspects of health. So my story. Several years ago, I found myself at the doctor for an unrelated issue, and they do what they always do, and they put you on a scale and put a blood pressure cuff on you. And what happened was they called the doctor over right away. Now that is never a good sign, right? So they called the doctor over right away. She took my blood pressure again. Then she took me to a room and she took it twice more. And then she gave me a look. And she said some of the most terrifying words I've ever heard. She said, "Your blood pressure is at stroke level." I was 35 years old. And I have to tell you, I was in utter shock because I have always been interested in health. I have always been interested in nutrition. And I thought I was doing everything right. I loved vegetables. I loved fruit. I ate almost all of my grains whole. Most of my meat was white, turkey or chicken. I was doing the balance moderation thing. I thought I was doing everything correctly. And here I was at 35 years old with stroke level blood pressure. So first, I had this moment of, well, actually it was more than a moment of utter denial. I mean, this can't be happening. I also happen to be at my highest weight. How can this be that I'm doing everything that I think I'm supposed to be doing, and I am in this position where I might not be around for very much longer? So for a few months, I did what I always did. Like, I had been on basically a diet since I was 11 years old. So almost a quarter century of dieting. So I knew a lot about dieting. I knew a lot about losing weight. And I always thought it was all about losing weight. And so for a few months I floundered. I did what I always did. Got to get the weight off, got to get the weight off, got to get the weight off. But I found myself in the same place I always find myself. I have lost, before this last time, hundreds of pounds and gained them all back plus more, right? I'm sure some of you might be able to relate with what I'm talking about. So I decided, okay, I need to take this weight loss issue and just set it off to the side. It's not going anywhere. That's how I felt at the time. I need to focus on how I can continue to be here. What do I need to do to stay alive, to heal my body? What do I need to do to continue to be here? I had someone very, very close to me have a massive stroke. So I knew exactly what that could look like, how bad it could be, if I survived. So this is something I really, really wanted to avoid. So I decided, instead of listening to the latest information, those little air quotes are on purpose, because there is a lot of noise out there about nutrition. Everyone believes they're an expert, lots of noise, right? Instead of doing that, I said, okay, I'm going to go to the source data about nutrition. And so I went directly to the science. I studied the science. I got up to my elbows in it because that is what I needed. I needed unequivocal proof. I needed hard data to show me what I was doing wrong. And what I found was, frankly, shocking. It was something that I applied immediately because I wanted to continue to be here. I really loved my life and I wanted to continue to be around. So I did it. I did what the science told me to do. And I have to tell you, it was amazing. Within 4 days, 4 little days. Now remember, almost a quarter century of dieting. So I've been on a lot of different diets, crazy diets, semi-healthy diets, but a lot of different diets. Within 4 days, I knew this was different. How did I know? How did I know within 4 days? That's not much time to have an impact on my health. I have to tell you, I felt fantastic. And I was a very, very sick woman at this time, but those 4 little days was a significant improvement. My energy was through the roof. My brain cleared. I just was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is it. And like I said, been on so much, like countless diets before that. So since then, I have, within a few weeks, I had corrected a lifelong GI issue. This is a bit of TMI, just preparing you, okay? A little bit of too much information. Are you ready? I had terrible chronic diarrhea my entire life. Like my mother said, I suffered with it as a baby. So my entire life, the kind of stomach issues where every time you go somewhere, you have to map out the bathrooms. The kind of stomach issues where there were countless times where I wasn't sure if I was going to make it home on time. The kind of issue where, you know, my husband and I love to travel, but there were places I just couldn't go. Within a few weeks, after suffering with that my entire life, that was cleared up. If this way of eating had done nothing else for me, it's done a lot, but if it had done nothing else, I would still be with it because that was a huge quality of life bump for me. Within a few months, I had gone from stroke level blood pressure to a healthy range within a few months. And my doctor took me off of my medication. And I have maintained a healthy range now for many years. So I know the power of changing the way that we eat when we have all of the information. The problem is we have a lot of misinformation out there, and we have a lot of, you know, sort of lukewarm, mediocre recommendations that don't allow us to achieve what the, you know, the optimal health that we have the opportunity to achieve. So, as I said, back then, lifetime dieter, lost hundreds of pounds and then gained them all back, except for this last time. And I always thought I ate healthy. I was doing everything I was told to do. I always tried to keep my ear open for all the latest nutrition information, but a lot of it was that misinformation, right? And where did I find myself after all of my efforts, my lifelong struggle? 35 pounds with stroke level blood pressure, my highest weight ever. So here are some of my results. As I told you, my GI issues cleared up, my tummy troubles went away, which was so amazing, so fantastic. Dramatically decreased blood pressure from stroke level to healthy range and able to maintain it without medication. Now my husband also was on 2 medications and he is off of his now as well. We have both maintained our health and our blood pressure specifically for several years now with no medication. We're well into our middle years. It is a very unusual thing for people to be at our age and not on any medication yet. So I lost over 60 pounds. My husband has lost over 45. Of course, my chronic diarrhea gone, dramatically increased energy, clear mind. As soon as very, very shortly after I transitioned to this way of eating, I went back to school because I realized my brain cleared, all that brain fog went away, and I realized I need to share this with other people, and I need to stop spinning my wheels and really focus on my passion. So what is my passion? Plant-Based for Life is my business, and it's my vehicle, but my passion is reducing suffering. You know, a lot of us, maybe ourselves in this group here, but a lot of us in our families, we see people suffering with things that are called lifestyle diseases, things that they can have an impact on by changing some of the decisions they make on a daily basis. And so it's my goal in life, my driving passion, to share this information with everyone so you know what you have the opportunity to change, to know what kinds of things can really give you a nice bump in your health. So we're going to be talking about some of those today. I had some pretty serious hormonal issues, and those regulated. Clear skin. I had terrible acne on my back, and that all went away. You know, it's amazing what happens when we nourish our bodies really well. You get this, it's a very common thing with people who transition to plant-based eating. They get this glow about them because your skin and your eyes brighten, and you know, just everything is more vibrant about you because you're nourishing that body really, really well. So here I am, all those years later, maintaining easily and lighter, healthier, and happier. One of the biggest things that I have really loved about this transition to this healthier way of eating is that I am no longer battling my body. I have found peace and contentment and gratitude and joy with my body because I'm working with it. And so that's why I share what I share. So here's just a little before. It's always fun to do before and after pictures, right? But we don't do before and after. We do before and during, because this is supposed to be from now on. You want to make changes that are sustainable. Going on a diet is actually not good for you. That up and down roller coaster ride of up and down weight and all of that, it's not good for our bodies, and it makes it harder. Each time we ride that ride, each time it's harder for us to do, to achieve the results that we got initially. So this is a before and during situation. So this is my before and during. You'll see how tired I am in that first picture, how red I am, smiling, but in pain. So I love these ones. This is my super, super adorable husband. Isn't he cute? So there is my before and during of my husband as well. There we are at a plant-based Thanksgiving celebration. Isn't that fun? There is no after. All right, so let's get into it. I would like to first introduce you to, some of you may have heard of the blue zones. Anybody, am I seeing any nodded heads? Have you heard of the blue zones? Blue zones. So there are 5 areas in the world where people live well into their older years, and they live well into their older years. So they have vital, productive lives long into, what we would consider sort of retirement age, right? So these 5 areas of the world are all over the world. So it's not like a geographical issue. It is just these places have something about them, about the way that they live, that allow people to live longer, vibrant lives. Ikari, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Okinawa, Japan, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and we have one locally too, Loma Linda, California. So they actually went and studied these 5 regions to figure out what is it that these places are doing that are different than the rest of the world. And so this is their Power 9, but I'm just going to tell you, so this is a holistic, again, approach, exercise, having a purpose, making sure to relax, eating plant-based foods, having a predominantly plant-based diet, your connections, belonging, all of these things, a holistic approach to health. But I'm going to tell you the top 2 things about these 5 very healthy areas of the world. Number 1 is social connections. This is the most important thing in your health. You thought I was going to say nutrition, didn't you? But the most important thing is staying connected, having people around you that support you, having people that you love, that you support. Those really beautiful connections are the number 1 most important thing in your health. Number 2 is beans. So beans, eating beans every day is the second most common thing amongst these 5 areas of the world. Beans are a wonderful, glorious powerhouse of nutrition. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. I just wanted to briefly introduce you. I could talk all day about the blue zones, but just wanted to show you a little bit about that. Here's another holistic approach to health, lifestyle medicine. So you know that doctors can specialize in all sorts of things, right? They can become surgeons, they can become orthopedics, they can do endocrinology for your hormones, and if you have diabetes, like all sorts of specializations. But there's one specialization you might not know about because it's not as common, and that is lifestyle medicine. So you become board certified to be a doctor, and you can become board certified to specialize. And one of these specializations is lifestyle medicine. And this is a beautiful thing because most doctors get little to no nutrition education. That's not their focus. And so these doctors that are educated and board certified in lifestyle medicine, they get the whole package. So they learn about all of these preventative measures and lifestyle decisions that you can make in order to live healthier. So of course, healthful eating is number 1 here, but physical activity, stress management, avoiding risky substances like, too much alcohol, smoking, that sort of thing, making sure to get your sleep, and again, those connections, those relationships. So I just wanted to briefly introduce you to this and realize that you can search on doctors that are board certified in lifestyle medicine. And, you can get the whole package when it comes to choosing a good doctor. Now, there are good doctors out there that don't have this, but this is just an extra bonus lovely thing that doctors have gone out of their way to educate themselves to help you to heal and help you to have a full, healthy life. Okay, so what is whole food plant-based eating? This is what I'm talking about today, and this is what I discovered that the science shows is the most protective diet. So whenever we're studying science, there's a lot of things we have to look at, but what I'm interested in is long-term studies over decades with thousands and thousands of people, and it shows us patterns of eating that are most health protective. So these long-term studies show us what people get sick with and what they pass away from. And these are the things I want to know. And so different patterns of eating. So let's say omnivorous. Omnivorous just means that you eat all sorts of different things, right? Maybe pescatarian, which is usually fish plus vegetarian. Lacto-ovo-vegetarian, which means eggs and dairy and vegetables. Or vegetarian, which generally means dairy and everything, all the vegetables. And plant-based or vegan. Whenever they study these 5 ranges, or whichever combination that they study in these long-term studies, the closer you get to plant-based, the longer you live and the less you suffer with lifestyle diseases. What are lifestyle diseases? Heart disease, diabetes type 2. A lot of cancers are related to lifestyle. There's all sorts of things, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, a lot of diseases, syndromes, and diagnoses that are related to lifestyle. And most importantly, our #1 killer in this country, heart disease, is our lifestyle disease. Now, there can be underlying things that are exceptions, but for the most part, it is lifestyle disease. So what is whole food plant-based eating? Does it mean I have to be a vegan? No, it doesn't. It just means the closer that you get to nourishing your body mostly with these high nutrient foods, the better your health is likely to be protected. So what is whole food plant-based? Anything that grows from the ground that's edible. Easy peasy, right? And so people think, oh my gosh, I can only have fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, nuts, or seeds? That sounds limiting to me. Well, actually, it's really not when you think about it. There are, in this culture that we live in, the most of us are living in this country that have a similar perspective on food, although there's lots of different variations within those groups. But typically, it's socially acceptable to eat, just a few animals. But when it comes to plants, there are tens of thousands of variation of plant that we can eat. So when I transitioned, I wasn't really sure what I was doing, frankly, but I just went for it. And what I discovered was that my diet greatly expanded instead of feeling limiting or restrictive because of those tens of thousands of variations that we can eat. So the whole idea is to eat those plants as close to the way they grew as possible. Some things need to be cooked, but as close to the way they grew as possible. I don't want you to forget your questions, so feel free to pop them in the chat or write them down because I want to make sure that I address any questions that you have as we're going along. So one thing I like to clear up right on the get-go is vegan versus plant-based. So plant-based is not vegan, but all plant-based foods are vegan just because there are no animals in it. But vegan is actually a compassionate stance. There are lots of very unhealthy vegan foods. So that's why the distinction. Oreo cookies are vegan. So just because vegans do tend to have, remember on that spectrum, they do tend to be protected against a lot of diseases. It doesn't mean it's a perfectly healthy way of eating though. Plant-based is all about the health. It's all about eating healthier. So that's the difference between vegan and plant-based. The whole idea with plant-based is to increase quality of life, to improve, prevent, and even reverse some of these diseases. It's all about the nourishment. It's all about getting in those incredible micronutrients that our body needs to heal and to protect itself. It's all about focusing on those really, really nourishing foods. So it doesn't mean you have to be vegan. It doesn't mean you have to be perfectly plant-based. We just want to get as much of that into you as possible, and that will help move you toward a healthier body. So this is an interesting thing. I don't focus on weight loss a lot. I focus on helping people to get healthier, but people are interested in weight loss. And so let's talk about it just a little bit. The sort of magical thing about plant-based eating is that this calorie density thing. Plant-based foods, most of them are extremely low calorie, high nutrient foods. So low calorie density, high nutrient density foods. And so naturally, oftentimes without having to worry about portion control, people lose weight if they need to. If you have weight you need to release. And this is part of why. So here's a caloric density little infographic. This is a plant-based registered dietitian that works locally, and she's wonderful. So you look, oil is one of the most calorie dense foods we can consume. So it, takes up only just a very, very small portion of our stomach. Meat, again, it is dense, but it is, it does not make us feel full. That's a common misconception. Meat is actually not satiating. It does sit in our system for longer. It's harder for our bodies to digest, but it doesn't keep us feeling full. The most satiating food, and there's scientific evidence to prove this, is boiled potatoes. Just so you know, a little fun fact. But look at this calorie density of these vegetables. It is almost impossible to eat too many vegetables. And gain weight, I mean. So is plant-based eating healthy? Are we missing anything? This is the question. So if we transition to 100% plant-based, we want to go all in. Are we missing anything? What about protein? What about calcium? What about all of these things? So I just want to give you some feedback from some large agencies that we recognize. So these overreaching agencies that advise us on, the best way to protect our health. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So this is a big organization that it is what registered dietitians sit under, all the people that are educated about nutrition. This is their umbrella. A properly planned vegan diet is safe for all ages and life stages. Let me just say that one more time. All ages and life stages. That includes littles, that includes pregnant women, that includes people in their older years. This is safe for everyone. And it further goes on to say it may prevent and reverse some diseases. This is a very protective diet, and it is the only diet that has been scientifically proven multiple times to reverse our #1 killer. So this is the only diet that has been shown to reverse heart disease. So that's our #1 killer. That's a big deal, right? The American Diabetes Association, notorious for not recommending a specific diet. What they want you to do, and I agree with this, is to take what you eat and make it better. Whatever you're doing right now, just make it better. And I teach that. But they did call out 3 diets. In the past few years, they have done the same thing, called out these 3 diets. And these are all predominantly plant-based diets. So the Mediterranean diet. Now, keep in mind, when people think of Mediterranean diet, they think, ooh, olive oil, cheese, and wine. Yes, please, right? But that's not the health protective part of it. The health protective part of it is all the fruits and vegetables. And then they have the DASH diet, which is dietary approaches to stopping hypertension. So it's a diet meant to reduce blood pressure. The original design of the study was actually, was designed by a plant-based doctor, and he wanted it to be written plant-based, but they actually, you'll see in the original writing of the study that they changed it to be more palatable for the American public. And so it has added in some things that the typical standard American diet includes. But originally it was his plan to make it plant-based. So these diets predominantly plant-based. And then the other one is the plant-based diet itself. So again, the American Diabetes Association does not like to say you have to eat this way, but those are the 3 diets they called out. Now, I like this little note here. This is the American Medical Association, and they were advocating for hospitals to provide plant-based foods to their patients, staff, and visitors. And this was a few years ago, but I like to leave it in because it's so fun because I get to do this. Ooh, it got passed. So SB 1138 requires all licensed California healthcare facilities to offer plant-based meals, and they consider this no animal products or byproducts, including all the dairy and everything. So this is a bill now. So all California healthcare facilities are required to provide plant-based diet food. So here's just a collection of a bunch of doctors that advocate for this way of eating. A few of these have done actual studies. You'll see the China study here. That's a very interesting one on dairy and protein. If you're interested in that sort of thing. Dr. Ornish and Dr. Esselstyn on the right-hand side here, they're all about reversing heart disease, but they talk about a lot of other things as well, but they actually led studies to show how to reduce or to reverse heart disease using just what you put in your mouth. It's amazing, right? They do advocate for other things as well, but the most important thing is that plant-based. Dr. Dean Ornish has a cardiac rehab program that is reimbursed by Medicare. So anybody who's had a heart attack can go to Dr. Ornish's cardiac rehab program and have that be reimbursed by Medicare. So that's, solid, proven, accepted way of healing after a heart attack. And then there are lots of other people out there that are advocating for this way of eating. Why? Why are they advocating for this way of eating? Because one of my dearest friends is a doctor, and she said, she always describes it like, you go from treating sickness to trying to heal your patients. Doctors care about you. They want you to heal, not just sort of survive the rest of your life. They want you to improve. They get so excited when you actually reverse your high blood pressure, your cholesterol. You're actually improving your health. This is what they want. And so that is why they're so passionate about it. And this is just a handful of them. There are many, many, many more. So this little summary of science was provided to me by a hospitalist for one of the hospitals I worked for advocating for, vegetarian, vegan eating. And so this is the summary that she gave me, and she said I'm allowed to share it. So I just want you to hear this from other people as well, not just me. Heart disease is lowest in vegans. Lower average blood cholesterol. Lower rates of hypertension, that's high blood pressure. Lower rates of cancer. Lots of cancers are protected by eating plant-based. You're protected from them. Diets that are more plant-based reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. Plant-based eating is a very high carbohydrate diet, and this is protective against type 2 diabetes. People get confused about carbohydrates. There's a wide spectrum of carbohydrates. What we want to focus on is good quality carbohydrates. An apple is not the same thing as a donut, right? And fruit is good for you. Don't not eat fruit. Don't be scared of fruit. I know there's some weird information going out there about fruit. It's not the same thing as sugar, not even close. Plant-based foods are more beneficial for kidney function than animal protein. The reason I put this one in, this one seems kind of odd, but the reason I put it in is because we cannot live without our kidneys. Kidneys don't get a lot of love, but they are a very important set of organs. And animal protein is very hard on them. So anybody who's consuming a high protein, especially animal protein diet, you're being really rough on your kidneys right now. So just want you to think about it. Animal protein has a lot of things that it does to our bodies, creating a lot of toxins, creating a lot of inflammation, doing a lot of damage. And so that's just something I really want you to be aware of for the kidneys specifically, but also all the other parts of the body. So here's just a little guide for things you can get in every day. Now, for people that don't want to make any changes, I'm not making any more changes. I just don't want to. I'm not interested. One of my best strategies for this is something called crowding. And so what I recommend is don't change anything, don't reduce anything, don't do anything else. Just add more in. Just add more things. So the greens, get those greens in every day. If they're also a cruciferous vegetable, you've heard that term before, like cruciferous vegetables are your broccoli, cauliflower, kale, anything in the cabbage family. So if your greens are also cruciferous vegetables, you get double bonus points. And so kale, that is a dark leafy green plus a cruciferous vegetable. We should be getting at least 2 to 3 servings of greens a day. every single day. This is very healing for the gut, very protective in all sorts of ways. Get those greens in. And a variety is a good idea as well, not just kale, lots of different kinds. Beans, remember I mentioned beans with the blue zones? Getting in those beans, lentils, peas, legumes, all of those beans. I used to recommend a cup or half a cup to a cup, but most recently that has been updated to a cup and a half of beans every day. So some people say to me, Jay, I can't do beans. They're way too hard on my stomach. Let me give you some tips. Our gut biome, this new emerging science. I'm absolutely ridiculously excited about the gut biome. It's really cool science. It is all about the balance of good and bad gut bacteria in terms of, of how it affects our health. And it's huge. It affects our immune system. It affects our brains. It's powerful stuff. It helps us to digest our foods and provide certain nutrients that we need. And so when we introduce more foods that are high fiber, we are changing our gut biome. And so naturally you might experience a little bit of discomfort as this change is being made. So if you do, I highly recommend you just back it off, whether it's high fiber foods in general or just beans, back it off and gradually increase it, gradually. I mean, even a tablespoon at a time. I used to have some trouble with beans. Yesterday, I ate a whole can of beans all by myself and had no trouble. So I know this can be done. You just need a little bit of patience. Make sure to drink lots of water and move your body. That will help as well. Berries, 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 berries. When it comes to all the beautiful jewel tones of all the fruits and vegetables, all the different colors represent different micronutrients. So get that rainbow in every day. Get a lot of variety. But these dark, rich jewel tones like, our blueberries and our cherries and our grapes, all these dark, rich colors, they are particularly protective. Blueberries, there's just a scientific study I read recently that was really cool. A handful of blueberries can improve your brain health within a few hours. Within a few hours of introducing a high quality, high nutrient food, you can start to improve your brain health. This is really, really important for those who are trying to protect themselves against dementia and Alzheimer's. But even if a person already has dementia and Alzheimer's, this can help to alleviate some symptoms. So get those good quality rainbow colored nutrients into your body. The allium category. So all of the aromatics, onions, garlic, all of those are really, really good for us. And they flavor our foods without having to add excess salt, excess oil, excess sugar. We call those the SOSs, salt, oil, sugar, that we're trying to avoid adding to our foods. Mushrooms. So mushrooms are a category all their own, but they have wonderful health protective benefits. I read new things about mushrooms all the time. They have to be cooked. Please at least cook your mushrooms a little bit. They have kind of a mild toxin about them. And so we just really want to make sure that they're cooked. They shouldn't be eaten raw. Okay, so arguably the most unusual and the most important thing to include in your diet are seeds. What do I mean by seeds? Flax, chia, and hemp. What we are trying to do is up our omega-3. We get a lot of omega-6 in our diet, so we want to keep that down, and we want to up the omega-3. It's that ratio that is most important. So flax is my favorite because it has other beautiful health qualities. So much science on flax. If you're interested in doing your own research, I highly recommend you do that. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend you do your research all of this. What I say over and over and over again in my classes and presentations is question everything. Question everything and then go out and do the research yourself. That is extremely empowering. So anyways, lots of science on flax. It must be ground and at least 2 tablespoons a day is what's recommended. You can also do chia and hemp. They're great too. Chia must be ground as well, but flax is my favorite. Get that flax in every day. All right. I'm actually going to just go over this really, really quickly because I want to leave lots of time for questions. Whenever you're making a habit change, make sure to realize that it's not just about forcing yourself to change. It's about setting yourself up for success. And how do we do this? We realize that motivation and willpower are limited resources. They're not going to sustain you long term. What we need to do is create an environment to make it easy for ourselves to make these changes. And there are lots of strategies for that. I have free classes and free support groups if you want more details about that. Okay. Knowing your whys. You got to have a powerful why associated with making this kind of change, because it does require effort. It does require you to constantly be thinking about what you're doing. And so my powerful why was I didn't want to have a stroke. That was a big one. And I really wanted to get off my medication. So those are two really, really powerful whys for me. And so I used those to keep me going. Tracking your progress is a good idea. Transitioning to a plant-based eating can actually improve labs very, very quickly. So that's a fun way to keep track. That's not just about weight. Keeping track of how you feel is also a good idea. We want to create automaticity. That is actually a real word. I actually thought for a while that it was a word that I made up when I taught this years and years ago, but no, it's a real word. And how do we create automaticity? How do we make it so that the good things we want to do are automatic instead of having to think about it and struggle with it? Practice. Just keep doing it over and over and over and over again. That's how we make good changes. Having a plan is absolutely critical. Every time that you have, a bump in your routine or something changes, we need to have a plan to deal with this. Also remember that perfect is not a real thing. Humans are not able to be perfect, and when we strive for perfection, we will always fall short. So striving for from a recovering perfectionist right here, striving for perfection is basically like, beating our head against a brick wall. So avoid trying to reach perfection and just move toward improving every day. So this is all about mindset. If you think you can't, if you think you cannot do something, you are absolutely correct. But on the flip side, if you think you can, you're absolutely correct as well. If you believe that you can make these changes, then you can. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Feel free to pop a question in the chat or just wave at me or raise your hand using the app, and I'll happily answer some questions now. Thank you so much for listening. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, something they want to share?
Jay, maybe you want to talk about protein, since people are always concerned about not getting enough protein on a plant-based diet.
Absolutely. So I mentioned the China study a little while ago. Now, the China study has shown with, a lot of people, this thing was huge, that our protein needs are much lower than we have been led to believe. Now, let me tell you how we came up with the protein recommendations we currently have. There was a time where we had boys that were in war and they were starving. And so they were trying to figure out a way to keep these boys as nourished as possible. And so they figured out what their protein needs were, and then they doubled it. So remember, more of a good thing is not necessarily better. And so too much protein, especially animal-based protein, is very hard on our bodies. Now, if you have been told that you need more protein, plant-based protein is actually much more accessible, digestible, especially for people over the age of 65. So plant-based proteins are more digestible by the body and so much easier on us. So which are the plant-based proteins? All of the beans, all of the seeds, all of the legumes, peas, all of those kinds of things are predominantly plant-based foods. Now that includes tofu and tempeh, which are soy-based products. So just in case, I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about soy. Soy is good for you. It is protective against heart disease and cancers. The really highly processed soy products, the soy that they use to make mock meats and things like that, that one's not very good for you. But the ones like tofu and tempeh and soybeans, edamame, all of those are very, very protective. Now, They've been accused of having estrogen in them. But let me tell you, it is a phytoestrogen. What does phyto means? It means plant. Plant-based estrogens are not the same thing as animal-based estrogens, okay? And they are actually protective because they sort of do the opposite thing that animal-based estrogens do. So that's why they're health protective, and that's why they are healthy to consume. Now, I know there's going to be some people in the room going, no, my doctor told me. Well, I just listened to a wonderful presentation by a plant-based oncologist, and she said she was heartbroken over it. She said for 18 years, she was specialized in breast cancer. She told people to avoid plant-based estrogens, those soy products. And she said, I was wrong. The science does not support that. It is protective. So, but if you do want to avoid soy, there's lots of other things you can eat. Get in those beans. The wonderful thing is protein is found in almost all plant foods. Greens are almost 30% protein. You can't get enough that way because you can't eat enough of the calories to get them that way. But I'm saying that you're getting it. If you're eating anything remotely approaching a balanced diet, you're getting plenty of protein. We have no protein deficiency wings in our hospitals here. Protein deficiency is not an issue. The only time protein deficiency comes up, you've seen those very skinny babies with the big bellies. That's Kwashiorkor syndrome. That's protein deficiency. And the reason they have protein deficiency is because they don't have enough to eat. So that is the only time it comes up, unless you have something going on with your system. Sometimes people do get protein deficiency if they've had gastric bypass, because you've actually removed some of the digestive part of your whole digestive system. And so that's going to cause some absorption problems. So in those situations, you might need a little bit more. But again, it's not very much, and focus on those plant-based proteins. Thank you, Jack. That was a really great point. What about calcium?
Getting back to that, Jay, I think another example is the plant-based animals like elephants and rhinoceros and gorillas, right? They just eat plants and they don't have a problem with bones or structure or.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Jack. So yes, if you think about these herbivorous animals, the largest and strongest land-based animals are plant-based. They eat nothing but plants. So if you think about an elephant, think about the size of, the size of their bones, right? Think about how powerful and strong and fast a rhinoceros is. Nothing but plants. That's all they eat. They just eat the green stuff. So there's plenty of, and you know what? This is really cool for all of you fellow science nerds out there. I'm a science nerd and I love it. So proud of being a science nerd anyway, is that protein comes from plants. That's where it's made. That whole photosynthesis process is the creation of protein. So when you consume animal products, you are getting recycled protein. Just go to the source. Go directly to the source. Eat those greens, eat all of those beautiful plant-based foods. And again, you don't have to be perfectly plant-based to experience good health, outcomes. Just do better. Just do more. Get in those hyper-nourishing foods, and those will help move you toward healing. The more that you do, just like anything else in life, the more you put in, the more you get out. So what about calcium? What about calcium? This isn't a big one, right? I will tell you, there is a ton of calcium in dairy products. But remember, that situation again is more necessarily better. It's not. So if you look at areas of the world that don't consume any dairy products, they have fewer hip fractures than we do here. We consume in this country, I think we're number one in terms of our dairy consumption. We consume a ton of dairy in this country, especially cheese, which is extremely high in saturated fat and cholesterol and sodium. But we consume a lot of dairy and we have one of the highest hip fracture rates. So that doesn't add up, right? So the issue with calcium is not how much we're getting, but how much we're keeping. It's all about what stays in our bones. When our body is constantly trying to achieve, balance and homeostasis, and our blood is very particular about its acidity level. When you throw that out of whack by consuming inflammatory foods, your blood will actually leach calcium out of the bones in order to regulate that balance. And so it's not about the calcium we consume, it's about how much we keep. And so when you're consuming your calcium through foods that are anti-inflammatory, like all the plant-based foods, especially those greens, then you are getting to keep more of that calcium. And I'll tell you, the most important thing for keeping bones healthy and dense is a good quality diet, but also moving your body. Got to move. It doesn't have to be fancy. Walking works. You know, I have my little weights back here. A little bit of weight-bearing exercise every day, you know, that is what will help keep your bones healthy. And I mean, give you a little demonstration or description as to why that is. Think about your muscles. You can't eat just tons of protein and expect your muscles to get bigger. You have to work them out to make them stronger and grow, right? And the same thing is for the bones. The bones will heal themselves, but in order to make them more dense, to make them more sturdy, we actually have to stress them. So when you do exercise, you actually create, like in your muscles, you create tiny little tears, and then they heal, and then you're stronger. Same thing in the bones, create tiny little cracks and fissures, and then they heal, and then you're stronger. So move that body, eat lots of greens, and move that body. Get lots of sunshine too, because that vitamin D is important as well. You are a quiet crowd. No questions for me at all. I usually have way too many questions. If you want to...
What is your typical breakfast and lunch menu like?
Sure. I love oatmeal. Oatmeal has been shown in many studies to be very heart protective. And what we're trying to do as we are eating a high quality protein, our plant-based diet, is getting in lots of fiber. Fiber is this magical thing. It sounds really, really boring, but it does beautiful things in our body. And so I use whole rolled oats. Stay away from those quick cooking ones, because they have been diminished by processing. They have had some of their fiber removed and they're going to absorb too quickly. So I do oatmeal, and that's when I get my flax in. I do oatmeal and then my 2 tablespoons of flax on top of that. And I sweeten it with a fruit. So either bananas, which are very sweet, or dates. And so that's usually what I do for breakfast. If it's hot and I don't feel like a warm breakfast, then I'll do a smoothie. But my smoothies have no protein powders in them. So no powders. Those are highly, highly processed foods. So I do mostly greens. Your smoothie should be 50 to 90% greens, and then a little bit of frozen fruit to sweeten it up. And then if I'm using that as breakfast, that's when I add in my flax as well. So that's breakfast. Those are my breakfasts usually. For lunch, it can be anything. Basically, what I tell people is you don't want to drop all of the food that you've ever eaten and completely start fresh. This is not a sustainable way to do things. What I always teach people to do is upgrade your ingredients. So spaghetti. How do we upgrade spaghetti? We can swap out the noodle, that white flour noodle, for a whole wheat or a whole bean. And there's brown rice and quinoa. There's all sorts of noodles that are made with whole ingredients. Leave out the meat and sub it with lentils. Lentils is a lovely thing to sub for ground beef. I absolutely love that. The texture and everything is beautiful. Then you have an opportunity with that marinara sauce to get in tons of veggies. You can also use like zoodles in order to add more bulk to your noodle and more veggies and more micronutrients. Every time I sit down, how can I add more vegetables to this? Even if it's a plate of vegetables, try and get lots and lots of veggies in. Burritos, you just swap out a few of those ingredients. Change that white flour tortilla to a whole wheat or corn. Corn is a whole grain, or a green leafy, or if you want to be really angelic. And then swap out the meat inside with beans, swap out that white rice with whole grains, add in lots of veggies, use avocado instead of cheese. You know, we just want to upgrade the foods that we currently eat. So I tell the story that my husband and I were married about 24 years ago. And when we were first married, we had Caesar salad just about every week. And we still have Caesar salad on a regular basis. It just has upgraded ingredients. I have a plant-based dressing that I use, lots and lots of veggies, and I use tempeh bacon instead of chicken the way I used to. So you just take what you already eat and upgrade it. Do you want more examples? I could go on for days about food. More examples? Okay. So what about, what if you just want to have a simple meal? Beans, whole grain, and veggies. When you're looking at your plate is 9 inches. That is a standard size when it comes to portions. So half of that plate should be vegetables. A quarter of it should be a whole grain or starchy vegetable. The whole thing though. Potatoes are perfectly fine to eat, but you gotta eat the skin too. That's the key. You want to increase the color. So a white potato is perfectly fine to eat, perfectly healthy, but a yellow, orange, yam or sweet potato, or a purple potato, the more color you add, the healthier it gets. And then a quarter of your plate can be some sort of plant-based protein. Beans or peas or whatever you want, if you want to keep it simple. Give me an example of another food that's typically eaten. What do you think? What do you normally eat for lunch? Soup? Soup in a sandwich maybe? There are tons of, I love to make soups. One of my favorite soups, and get a slow cooker or an Instant Pot and just throw a bunch of veggies in there and it's going to be delicious. Season it with those herbs instead of, or no salt seasonings that are already put together for you instead of all the salt. And that is an incredibly healthy way to eat. And then your bread. So we're having sandwiches here. So we want to pay attention to that bread. Upgrade that bread to at least a whole wheat, if not a sprouted wheat. There's sprouted wheat breads out there that are fantastic. Use a whole wheat pita. Use a whole wheat tortilla or a flat bread that's made out of whole wheat or beans or what have you. Lots of different options out there. What we want to do is make sure we stuff that sandwich with lots of veggies. And then hummus is a lovely way to get away from using mayonnaise or other things like that. But I do have a lovely plant-based mayonnaise recipe if you're interested. And then just take that opportunity to put as much good nourishing food into that sandwich as possible. Sliced tomatoes, sliced avocado, plant-based proteins like a tempeh bacon. That's a lovely sandwich. Anybody want any recipes, or feel free to reach out to me. Let me think, what else? What else do we eat? There's so many wonderful things that we can make. Realize that even if you're eating anything approaching a balanced diet right now, at least 3/4 of what you're eating right this moment are plant-based. Think about that for a second. All of your starchy foods, all of your vegetables, all of your fruits, all of your grains, all of your beans, those are all plant-based foods. So people say, oh, vegan foods are gross. And I'm like, you've never eaten an apple? You don't like apples? You don't like cherries? No, these are all plant-based foods. So it's not as foreign as it sounds. It's not as weird. Basically, most of what we eat is already plant-based, especially if you consider your diet fairly healthy. So the more we push that number to as close to 100% as possible, the better our health will be, because we're eliminating those highly inflammatory foods, all the animal products, all the highly processed foods, the white flours and the sugars and all of that stuff. The more we remove those things out of our diet and increase the healing foods, the better our body is going to feel. Helen, do you have a question? It looks like you're talking, but I can't hear you. Unmute. You're still muted.
Okay.
Oh, there
All
you
right.
go. You got it.
I eat a lot of eggs. I live alone. I like to make an omelet for dinner sometimes. I eat hard-boiled eggs in salads. I eat eggs, scrambled egg for breakfast 2 or 3 times a week. So is that, that's not plant-based.
So let me address eggs. Eggs are, let me start by sharing something with you about the American Egg Board. So the American Egg Board, their whole job is to get us to eat more eggs. That's what their whole job is. They put funding into research. They put money into promotion to try and get us to eat more eggs. The people that want you to eat as many eggs as possible, say that it's not safe to eat any more than 4 eggs a week. So that should give you a kind of an idea that the people that want you to eat the most eggs as possible, the furthest they're willing to push that is 4 eggs a week. So eggs are, they're an animal protein. So they have all of the inflammatory properties. They are, even if you're just eating the egg white, that is pure protein. So that is actually even harder on our bodies in terms of digestion, in terms of that kidney function. They are extremely high in cholesterol. One egg is about 3/4 of your daily limit for cholesterol. And we don't need to consume any cholesterol. We're animals. Animals make cholesterol. There is no cholesterol in plant foods. So we make what we need. We do need some, but whenever we eat more, that is typically turns into the not good kind, or saturated fat does that as well. So the beautiful thing is that I have an absolutely lovely tofu scramble that everybody who's tried it has loved it. So if you want that, I'll send it to you. So we really want to reduce those inputs that are causing damage and increase the things that are improving health. So some people will say, like, there's some studies out there that you'll see that, eggs are healthy and this is why. This is what we need to pay attention to, as compared to what? So there's an article in Harvard that I share with some of my classes that I think illustrates this beautifully. Eggs have been shown to be better for your breakfast than donuts or than sugary cereal. But in the broader perspective, a much better choice is oatmeal, is the whole grain option. So if you're having an occasional egg, this is not a huge deal. We're constantly bombarded by things that our body has to heal, but it's the whole thing is it's not a health food, and it's not good for us. There are a couple of things, a couple of micronutrients in there that people will say, oh, this is why they're healthy, choline and things like that. But it's a very small percentage, and you get a lot more from plant-based foods. So we just really want to, I'm not saying don't eat eggs, sounds like you love them. I'm just saying get that out of balance in a good way. Increase all the good things and reduce some of those ones that are not doing good things for our bodies. Thank you for the great question. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I have used up my time, but I am more than happy to stick around and answer more questions. But I realize if you have things to do, I wanted to give you this opportunity to be released if you need to go. I want to thank you so much for listening and some questions and things like that. I absolutely love doing this. I'm sure you can tell. So I want to thank you so much. I'm going to be hanging out for just a few minutes if anybody wants to ask any more questions, but otherwise have a beautiful and healthful day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jay. That was so informative.
Thanks,
I had never heard your story. I was delighted to hear that too.
Yeah.
Perhaps you would like to talk about what you have available in terms of classes and things like that.
I'd be happy to.
I don't know if you would, like your Saturday class or your Saturday meeting that you have, and your Tuesday class, in case somebody's interested in them.
There are a lot of resources out there, just in general. There are tons of resources out there. There are many other plant-based advocates out there with tons of free resources. There's really no need to pay for anything. I do have a business, but I do a lot of stuff for free. And if I could do it all for free, I would, because that's how passionately I feel about it. Every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m., that's Pacific time. I think we're all in the same area here. Is my free plant-based eating education series. So it just kind of shows you how to do this. On Saturdays at 10 a.m., we have Plant Chat. And so we do a little bit of education, but it's mostly about supporting each other, sharing recipes, sharing ideas, asking questions. And so Tuesdays at 7 p.m. And this is all online right now. Tuesdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 a.m. If you'd like to be invited and get the info about this, Jan or Jack can forward that to you. But if you have a pen and paper right now, I'll give you my email. It is j@pbforlife.com. So that's JAY@pbforlife.com. So that's j@pbforlife.com. Reach out. I'm absolutely okay with, if you want to send me an email and ask me a question that you didn't want to ask in the group. I know sometimes that's a little, but you're welcome to send me an email and ask me a question. I welcome them at all times, anytime. And feel free to join us. We have such a beautiful group, really supportive, loving, wonderful people that are working toward better health. And so that's one science-based shown to increase your chances of sustaining and gaining better health is with good support. Thank you, Jan.
Good. Okay. I guess you said that you were going to stay around a little while if people wanted to talk or chat for what, about 5 minutes or so, or?
Yeah, if anybody has a question or thought, or if you want to reach out to me and we can do a one-on-one chat. If you don't feel comfortable doing it in the group, I'm fine with that. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions in case they've thought of anything else they want to ask.
Jay, could you please put in the chat your email address, write it out for me?
I can do that. That's actually
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. There you go. Oh, let me put it in. I did that. I answered you privately. Let me put that in for everybody. So there's my email. I welcome emails anytime. All I care about is that the suffering is reduced in this world. That's all I care about. That is my driving passion. That's why I do what I do. And I know that suffering can be reduced by upgrading what we know about nutrition. And so I just want to help that, to elevate that with everyone. So if I can help, feel free to reach out. Any other last thoughts or questions? Okay.
We got a question up here. Unmute, huh?
Okay. No questions?
I have a question. And you talked about eggs, and you talked about the cholesterol. Of course, we know the cholesterol is concentrated in the yolk of the egg.
Yeah.
Does this 4 eggs a week, if you eliminated the yolks, could you have egg white omelets with all the veggies in it every day because you're eliminating the yolks? Or is there also something in the whites that I'm not aware of that we have to avoid?
So the issue with the white is, I just want to say, for the person that was talking and trying to ask a question, you're on mute, so we couldn't hear you. So try unmute yourself while we're chatting here, and then we'll get to your question as well. So the thing with eggs, so as I said, there are a couple of small amounts of micronutrients that people really push in terms of egg health, but they're in the yolk. So there's really nothing but pure protein in the egg white. It's just pure protein. It is the food for the baby chick that would have grown, right? And so that pure protein is that protein that's hard on our kidneys. Remember I mentioned about the animal protein being hard on our kidneys? Pure protein like that. So it doesn't provide much in the way of nourishment, and it is that pure animal protein. So again, I would limit that to 4 a week. You're right, though. It does have less cholesterol. It's just pure protein is what that is.
Yeah. My question was about, I eat yogurt with strawberries or blueberries for lunch lots of time. Isn't that healthy?
So yogurt has probiotics in it. So that is really the only thing that's healthy about it. And you can get those probiotics in other places. So the problem with yogurt is that it is a dairy product, and dairy products are very inflammatory. They are, there was a huge study that was just released about its connection with cancer. They create a lot of inflammation in our bodies that lead to allergies, excess phlegm, congestion, this sort of thing. Very high in saturated fat. So yogurt without any sweetener or anything in it is a very high sugar. The lactose in milk is is something that people, anybody who has blood sugar control issues really needs to watch out for milk products and the inflammation. The good news is that there are tons of plant-based yogurts out there, really, really delicious ones. So you get the benefits without the drawbacks.
Yeah.
Now,
Like what are they?
there's ones made with almond milk and soy milk, and I'm not a huge yogurt eater, but there are tons of them out there. Just look in the dairy section, in the plant milk section, and you are going to see those sections are growing and growing and growing these days, which is very exciting. So you should be able to find some in there. I know Trader Joe's has some, and we just have to look in that dairy section. That's where they are.
Yeah, I should have added that I only eat Greek yogurt.
So Greek yogurt is a little bit better, but still the dairy, right? So in terms of dairy products, the Greek yogurt is the best, but it's kind of, the best of the worst. So when people ask me, frankly, when people ask me, what's the first thing I should eliminate? I say dairy before even meat, because it's that harmful to our bodies.
Wow.
I know. This whole marketing thing with dairy is impressive. We have been convinced that we have to be breastfed our entire lives, and that we have to be breastfed by a cow our entire lives. When you think about it logically, it doesn't make much sense. But on the inside, it makes perfect sense, because we've been told since we were little, milk does a body good, growing bones, all of this kind of stuff, right? When actually, it's actually more harmful to our bones than it is helpful. I know, it's crazy. So it's all about, remember what I was saying in the beginning about these mediocre, lukewarm recommendations? That's what it is. So, yogurt is better than the rest of the dairy, but it's not what is ideal. In this space of ideal that we don't know about up here, this is what's keeping us sick.
So substitutes for milk would be almond milk and what else?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. So almond milk is good. Almond milk is the lightest in calories and all that kind of stuff. Watch out for those additives, though. They add a lot of crazy stuff to it. Soy milk is excellent if you're trying to get the closest nutritional equivalent to dairy without the harmful stuff. Soy. We want to make sure that when we get soy milk, that it is nothing but soybeans and water in those ingredients. But there is oat milk, hemp milk, cashew milk, there's hazelnut milk, there's all sorts of plant-based milks. The most common ones are almond, soy, and oat. Oat is a really good one for if you like coffee creamer. That one is the closest sub that people find for coffee creamer. Or macadamia, but that one's a little bit more obscure. Trader Joe's has a combination almond macadamia nut that people like in their coffee as well.
Jay, would your recommendation be to a mother with a newborn child, number one, not to breastfeed, number two, not to go and give the milk when it's young, but to trade off into some of these other alternate milk forms of almond milk or soy milk?
Breast milk is, a mother's breast milk is the absolute perfect food for a baby, and that should be done as long as the baby is able to take it in. That is an absolutely perfect, ideal foods for baby. No subs should be given unless necessary. But please don't transition to another animal's milk, because that is not helpful. There's all sorts of emerging science about giving children animal-based milks young and some of the things that are coming out of it. I never say anything that isn't solidly science-based, so I'm not going to share that with you, but there is some worrisome stuff coming out in the science.
Are there any societies that are not giving cow's milk or goat's milk, etc., animal milk, to their young children that are using?
A lot of them. Yes, a lot of them. Yeah. So if you look at any of the really the older traditional societies out there that haven't been touched by the Western diet, these societies are typically very much plant-based. And that's what you're going to find. And they are not suffering from the things that we're suffering from.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
It will be, because a lot of them now have McDonald's.
Exactly. Exactly. Any other last thoughts or questions?
What's interesting, Jay, is the standard American diet. If the acronym is SAD, S-A-D, Standard American Diet.
I love it. It's very sad. It's very sad. It's very sad. And the more it's very, very interesting. If you watch the rest of the world, the more that it adopts our way of eating, the more it gets sick with the things we're getting sick with. This pattern of eating is really a revelation that we can see that, you know, the way that we eat and why we are so sick with all of these things. I mean, I know I would challenge that there is nobody in this room that doesn't know somebody that has heart disease or type 2 diabetes. Does anybody in this room not know somebody with heart disease or type 2 diabetes?
No.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And these are, you know, things that can be managed or even reversed in some situations with changing the way that we eat. I didn't do anything except change the way that I eat. I didn't exercise more until later. Of course, now I'm more well-rounded than I was back then. In the beginning, I did nothing but change the way that I eat, and the dramatic health results I discovered from in my own personal experience, it really blew me away. And I just want that for all of you as well.
You know, Jan, you mentioned that the benefits of the beans and legumes, and I totally agree with you. You also mentioned that potatoes to you were very beneficial. It was boiled potatoes you mentioned were beneficial. Where's your position on rice? Because we know many cultures, right, there are rice-based cultures, as some cultures are in beans and some cultures are in potatoes. What's your position on rice?
So white rice is actually, as you said, so when we're talking about the difference between white and brown rice, white rice is the brown rice with, you know, a lot of the fiber and some of the nutrients removed. That being said, so of course the brown rice is more health rich. It's more fiber and more nutrients. But white rice as a base for you know, all other kinds of foods in a diet is predominant in some very healthy cultures. But keep in mind what else they're eating. So starch-based diets, like countries in the world, communities in the world that eat mostly sweet potatoes or mostly rice, or, you know, mostly these starch-based diets are some of the healthiest diets out there. So this whole carb fear that we're going through is dangerous to our health, frankly. But white rice is actually okay. But you know, it's one of these things that is okay. It can be part of a healthful plant-based diet. But if you're looking to upgrade that, then the brown rice is better. So you can keep white rice as a part of your central diet, provided you don't have blood sugar control issues, because without that fiber, it can create spikes in our blood pressure or in our blood sugar if we have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. So we do have to, depends on the situation, but for the most part, if the rest of your diet is spectacular, you can include white rice.
You know, you mentioned that, and which is known that not all carbohydrates are the same, and in moving away from the rice and the potatoes and the pastas and all, moving away from white towards the beans and legumes, I think is a healthier way of getting our carbs, and at the same time following doctor's orders that say you need to cut back on your carbs.
Okay, so let's address that really, really quickly. So remember you're not wrong. So the beans are kind of a resistant starch. So they do have carbohydrates in them, and they're going to create fewer problems for people that have blood sugar control issues. But when it comes to diabetes, all types of diabetes, the core underlying issue now, there are a lot of organs that are impacted by diabetes that impact whether your blood sugar is going to go up or not, you know, dangerously. The most important thing we can do for healing insulin resistance, which is that underlying issue, that keeps the sugar in our blood instead of being absorbed into the cells. The way to heal that is to really limit your bad fats. So all the saturated fats, the cholesterol, the trans fats, limit all of those fats and increase the good quality carbohydrates. So all of your fruits and vegetables, those are all carbohydrates. And even the starchy ones, those can help with healing. Now, while you're healing that, while you have insulin resistance and while you're trying to heal that, you might get spikes. And so in that case, you're going to want to pay attention to those really, those foods that create those big spikes and limit those. But as you heal that insulin resistance, that underlying issue of getting the glucose, which is the energy our bodies and most importantly our brains need to survive. That's our favorite source of energy that comes from carbohydrates. as while you're healing that insulin resistance, you do need to pay attention to those foods that cause more spikes, like white rice and potatoes without their skins, and really, really sweet fruits. But as soon as you heal that, you should be able to include those very healthy foods back into your diet. Remember, most doctors get no nutrition education. Now, they have your best interest at heart almost always, but they get no nutrition education. So if you need help with your diet, please go to somebody that has been specifically educated in nutrition. So that was two things there. But yes, absolutely. Get those beans in. That resistant starch is going to help keep that blood sugar spike. So we have to have up and down. That's normal. But what we don't want is spike crash. And that resistant starch in the beans will help with that. I hope I haven't totally confused you with that. If you have questions.
You explained it well. Thank you.
Thank you.
One final question is I think we've all read and heard about the benefits of olive oil, and you have sort of panned oils. What's your position on olive oil?
So I'll tell you. So olive oil, all oils, all of them are highly processed foods. They are pure fat. They have been extracted from things. So let's say you get vegetable oils or fruit-based oils like avocado or olive. They have been, that fat, that pure fat has been removed from its beautiful package that contains most of its micronutrients and all of its fiber. So so that fat is not necessarily bad, but when you remove it from its package, it creates a whole host of problems. Now, olive oil, there is science to show that olive oil is healthy. But again, remember what I was saying before about the oatmeal? As compared to what? So olive oil is one of the healthier oils compared to lard, compared to butter. It's better than that. But it is oils, all oils are high in omega-6. Remember, we're talking about that omega-3 and 6 ratio. They're high in omega-6. They are extremely calorie dense, extremely. One of the most calorie dense foods we can consume. So if we have any weight to release, that's an easy way to get those calories out. So olive oil has some heart benefits, but it also has some heart drawbacks. And let me explain why. So the benefits and the drawbacks, they don't really outweigh each other. But when you take into account this other stuff, then I highly recommend you leave oils out entirely. But let me tell you why all oils, even the healthier ones, are inflammatory. And they're hard on our endothelial lining. That is the inside of our blood vessels. Remember, our blood vessels, we want them stretchy and pink and perfect and perky. We want them to be able to stretch with exertion, with stress and things like that. Those oils, even the best ones, everything's on a spectrum, even the best oils cause stiffening and damage to the inside of our blood vessels. So very high in omega-6, inflammatory, high calorie density. They don't have any of their original fiber, which is really, really good stuff, or most of their micronutrients have been removed. So does that mean that you can never, ever have oil? Absolutely not. But it does mean that we need to pay attention to what we're missing. Whenever it's that lukewarm, mediocre recommendation thing again. Whenever you're eating something, think, really critically evaluate how that could be upgraded. How could that be improved? You can improve the consumption of that olive oil by eating the olive instead of using the oil. Mm-hmm. So anytime we're looking at our food, go as close to the way it grew as possible. As that is where the magic of, the micronutrients and the fiber and all the micronutrients and the way that it's absorbed by our bodies. With that fiber intact, it gets digested and absorbed at the correct place all the way through our digestion. Again, it's not about being perfect. I'm not saying you have to go plant-based overnight. You never cook with oil again. But if you're interested to learn how to cook without oil, if you want to choose that as your next upgrade, then I'd be happy to help you with that. Just let me know. It's all about your choice. You get to choose. We're all grown-ups here. We can eat donuts all day, every day if we want to. We have that right. I just want what's best for you. That's all. All right, folks. Okay. Anything else? I think that's, we've held you over for a while now. Jen?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This is so informative. I'm sure, and the questions that came out of it are so good. And
Yes.
I really appreciate your being here. And maybe we can see you again.
I would love that.
If
I would love
we
that.
can
This has been
arrange
so
it.
much fun.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Everybody,
beautiful and
thank you.
healthful
Thank
day.
all right.
Thank you.